The first thing I perceived on the other side was not light. I need you to understand that. Before any visual, before any sense of a figure or a presence, before any light at the end of a tunnel, there was sound. Or rather, there was a silence so complete, so dense, that it carried more information than any sound could. It was not an absence. It was a presence. It was the texture of something that has no beginning or end. And for a fraction of a second that felt like forever, I was held inside of it. My name is Sarah Brennan. I spent 19 years as an ICU nurse at Memorial Medical Center in Springfield, and I died for 33 minutes on the evening of October 14th, 2022. If you're new here, subscribe. I've never told this story publicly before, and I need you to understand that what I'm about to share is not metaphor, not symbolism, not the product of a brain in crisis. This is what I lived. Drop your experience or question in the comments. I've read thousands of NDE testimonies over the years, and I know how this lands. I know the doubts it raises, and I want to hear from you. I want to start with what my training told me was happening, because that is part of the story, and leaving it out would be dishonest. I knew the exact moment my heart stopped. I was charting. That detail sounds almost comic now, but I was standing at the nursing station, documenting a medication adjustment for a patient in 4B, and I felt the peculiar lightheadedness that I had felt dozens of times in my career in other patients. The tunnel vision narrowing, the high-pitched ring that starts at the periphery and moves inward. I remember thinking, with the clinical detachment that 19 years of critical care had trained into me, hypoxia, rapid onset. I was already sliding down the counter before my legs gave out. My colleague David found me. I know this because he told me, months later, what happened in those first 4 minutes. He started CPR. They called the code. Someone grabbed the defibrillator. I was on the floor of the nursing station where I had fallen, and my body was a piece of equipment that had malfunctioned, and everyone was doing exactly what they were trained to do. But I was not on that floor. I was in the silence. The clinical part of my mind, and I need you to understand this because it is the most strange and perhaps the most important thing I can tell you. The clinical part of my mind was still running. Even there, even in that space outside of heartbeat, outside of breath, outside of the electrical storms that keep a human body alive. I knew what was happening. I had spent 19 years studying the physiology of death. I knew that at the 4-minute mark, brain cells begin to die without oxygen. I knew that at 6 minutes, the damage becomes irreversible. I knew that my colleagues were working against a clock that was not on their side. And I want to tell you something about that knowledge. It meant nothing. Not because it was wrong, it was correct. Everything my training told me was physiologically accurate. But it was like trying to understand the ocean by studying the temperature of a single drop of water. The framework itself was insufficient. The categories I had spent my entire professional life using to understand human beings, vitals, labs, imaging, response protocols, those categories did not exist in that space. I was not a patient. I was not a body with failing systems. I was something that my training had no language for. At some point, I cannot measure it, I have no idea how long it lasted in that place where there was no time. The silence began to move. That is the only way I can describe it. It started to have texture, depth, direction. And then there was something else. Not light yet. Something beneath the light. A warmth that was not heat. A presence that was not physical. It was gathering, if that word makes any sense. Concentrating. moving toward a point that I could not see but could feel. And then I heard it. Not with ears, there were no ears, but I heard it as clearly as I have ever heard anything in my life. A voice. And the voice said 3 things. I need you to hear these 3 things because they are the reason I am standing here, the reason I left the ICU, the reason I cannot stop telling this story even when it terrifies me, even when I see the doubt in people's eyes, even when I know how it sounds. The first thing the voice said was, "The window is closing." And I knew exactly what that meant. Not because I had studied eschatology, not because I was particularly devout. I was a nurse. I worked nights. I drank too much coffee. I had a complicated relationship with my faith that I am not proud of. I knew what it meant because the knowledge was inside the words. The words carried their own understanding. And what I understood was that there is a period of time, a season, a window, and that window is not metaphor, it is not symbolic. It is as real as the heart attack that put me on that floor. And that window is narrowing, closing. The rapture of which the scriptures speak, the catching away, the moment when what is mortal puts on what is immortal. That moment has conditions, and the conditions are being met by fewer and fewer people with each passing day. I want to stop here and say something that I have not said publicly, something that I wrestled with for months before I understood it. When I came back, when they brought me back, and they did bring me back after 33 minutes, after David had been doing chest compressions for most of that time, after they had shocked me twice, after a social worker had been called to deal with the paperwork of a colleague dying at the nursing station. When I came back, I was angry. I was furious. Not at anyone, not at God, not at the circumstances. I was angry because I had seen something. I had been given something, and I did not want it. I had built a life, a career, an identity, a certain kind of comfortable distance from the big questions. And now I had been handed something that I could not put down, could not return, could not pretend I had not seen. The window is closing, and I had been on the wrong side of it. That anger lasted about 6 weeks, and then it transformed into something else, something that I can only call urgency. Not fear. Let me be very clear about that. What I felt was not fear. It was love. It was the specific, overwhelming, inconvenient love that you feel for someone who is in danger and does not know it. It is the feeling a mother gets when she sees her child walking toward a street that is not safe. It is not a threat. It is a warning given in love. And it does not feel like condemnation. It feels like being woken up. The second thing the voice said was, "There is only one thing blocking the way." And I need to be careful here. I need to be very precise, because I know how easily these words can be misused, how quickly they can become a weapon in the wrong hands, how carefully the enemy works through distortion. What I am about to tell you is what I was shown, not what I invented, not what I concluded. What I was shown, in that place, by that voice, with a clarity that I have never experienced in my waking life. Division. Not between believers and non-believers, not between denominations, not between political factions. Those things exist, yes, and they are real wounds in the body of Christ, but they are symptoms, not the disease. What I was shown was deeper than that. What I was shown was the division that lives inside individual believers. The split between what we say we believe and how we actually live. The fracture between our public faith and our private hearts. The way we have learned to perform Christianity without actually dying to the self that needs to die. The way we have built empires of the spirit while our souls remain unchanged. I was shown, and this is the part that breaks me every time I tell it. I was shown specific people. Not by name, not by face, but by something else. A kind of spiritual signature. I was shown people who loved God with their lips and not with their lives. I was shown people who used the name of Christ as a brand, a political tool, a social credential. I was shown people who had converted the gospel into a comfort product and were selling it at the price of their integrity. I was shown the casual cruelty that hides inside certainty. I was shown the way we weaponize scripture against each other, the way we build walls out of verses, the way we have turned the most radical love story ever told into a club for insiders who agree with us. And I was shown my own face. I want to be precise and broken at the same time here, because that is exactly what this felt like. Precise, because the clinical part of my mind that was still running, the part that had spent 19 years documenting, diagnosing, observing, that part recognized the accuracy of what I was seeing. Every detail was true. Nothing was exaggerated. Nothing was distorted. It was the truth. And broken, because the truth, when it is held up to you by a love that has no agenda except your healing, when it is shown to you not as accusation, but as diagnosis, when you are shown your own complicity in the very things you claim to hate, that kind of truth does something to a person. It breaks the thing that needed to break, and it leaves everything else intact. The voice did not say, "You are condemned." The voice did not say, "You are lost." The voice said, "This is what blocks. This is what separates. This is what keeps you from the place I have prepared." And then the voice went silent for a moment that lasted a very long time. And then the third thing. The third thing the voice said was, "I am doing a new thing." Not a threat, not a promise that excludes, an announcement, a declaration of intent. I am doing a new thing. And it sounded, and I need you to hear this, I need you to hold on to this. It sounded like joy. It sounded like the joy of a surgeon who has just opened the chest and sees that the repair is possible. It sounded like the joy of a parent whose child has finally, after years of struggle, turned toward the light. It sounded like joy because it was joy. Because God is not sitting in heaven wringing his hands, waiting for humanity to get its act together. God is actively, presently, urgently working. And what he is working on is the removal of the blockages. What he is working on is the healing of the division. What he is working on is the preparation of a people who can receive what he has always wanted to give. The new thing is not a rapture that leaves the world behind. The new thing is a rapture that redeems the world on its way out. The new thing is a people who have been healed of the disease of division, who have been made whole, who have been prepared, not by their own righteousness because there is none, but by the surrender of their will to the only will that matters. And here is what I have learned in the 2 years since I came back. Here is what I carry every single day. The window is closing not because God is running out of time. The window is closing because the work is almost done. The harvest is almost in. The new thing is almost ready to be revealed. And the question is not whether you believe in the rapture. The question is whether you are ready to be caught up in it. And the answer to that question is not what church you attend, not what version of the Bible you read, not what political party you vote for, not whether you speak in tongues or vote no on ballot measures or post scripture quotes on your social media. The answer is simpler and harder and more beautiful than any of those things. Are you willing to be healed of the division inside you? That is the block. That is the one thing. The division between your public self and your private self. The division between your theology and your behavior. The division between the God you profess and the God you actually serve. The one who approves of your choices, who validates your opinions, who makes you feel superior to the people you have decided are not real Christians. That division, that split, that lie you tell yourself every day that you are basically good, basically faithful, basically doing enough. I was shown that lie, and I was shown what is on the other side of it. There is a unity that the Spirit gives, not uniformity, not agreement on every point, not the elimination of the beautiful diversity that God has built into His creation, but a unity of purpose, of heart, of will, of love. A unity that is not achieved by humans, but received by humans from a source outside of themselves. And that unity is the qualification. That unity is the readiness. That unity is what the window is for. I have been asked so many times since October 2022 whether I saw Jesus. And I want to answer that question honestly, because I think honesty is the only currency that matters in this space. I did not see a face. I did not see a beard or a robe or long hair or any of the visual cliches that NDE accounts love to describe. What I perceived was not visual. It was relational. It was the sense, overwhelming, unmistakable, permanent, of being in the presence of someone who knew me completely. Not my body, not my name. Me. The real me. The me that I have been hiding from myself for 46 years. And that presence was not afraid of what it found. It was not disgusted. It was not disappointed. It was glad. It was welcoming me home not because I had earned it, not because my Jianli was impressive, not because I had gotten all the answers right on the test of life, but because it loved me. Because it had always loved me, because the love was not a response to my goodness, but a property of the presence itself. Like light is a property of the sun. It does not choose to shine. It cannot choose not to shine. That is what I was given, and I have spent 2 years trying to figure out how to give it away. Here is what I have learned. You cannot manufacture this unity. You cannot pray your way into it through sheer willpower. You cannot read enough books, or attend enough conferences, or have enough private revelations. What you can do is stop blocking it. What you can do is remove the obstacles. What you can do is get honest about the division inside you. The way you pretend to be someone you are not in church. The way you perform righteousness for an audience of humans instead of practicing it alone with God. The way you have turned your faith into a social identity that protects you from the very transformation it promises. Stop blocking. That is the message. Stop building the wall. Stop rehearsing the lie. Stop performing the part of someone whose faith costs them nothing, whose discipleship requires no surrender, whose love for God does not interfere with their comfort, their reputation, their carefully constructed life. The window is closing. And I know how that sounds. I know it sounds like threat, like manipulation, like the kind of fear-based messaging that has turned so many people away from the very thing they were looking for. But I am telling you what I heard, and what I heard was not a threat. It was a loved one running out of time to warn you. It was the urgency of someone who has seen the danger you cannot see. It was the terrible, beautiful burden of a message that I did not ask for and cannot put down. 33 minutes. That is what they tell me I was gone. 33 minutes in which my heart did not beat, my lungs did not breathe, my brain did not register a single electrical impulse. And in those 33 minutes, I was given a window into something that my 19 years of medical training had never prepared me for. Not the mechanics of dying, the purpose of living. We are not here to build empires. We are not here to win arguments. We are not here to be right. We are here to be healed. And healed people heal people. Broken people break people. And the one thing that blocks the healing, the one thing that keeps the division alive, is the lie that we are already fine, already whole, already good enough, already faithful enough, already on the inside of the window when we have never once done the work of letting the light in. I am not here to tell you that you are going to hell. I am not here to tell you that you are failing. I am here to tell you what I was shown. And what I was shown was a love so absolute, so unconditional, so relentlessly hopeful, that the only response I could make was to stop pretending I did not need it. If something stirred in you as I was speaking, if there is a question you have been carrying, a doubt you have been hiding, a pain you have been handling alone, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. I respond to as many as I can. This channel is not about me. It is about the thing that found me in the silence, before the light, before I had any language for what was happening. I am grateful you were here. I am grateful you stayed. And I am going to keep telling this story until I have given away everything I was given. The window is closing, but there is still time. There is always time until there is not. And I am standing here to tell you that the love that found me is still finding people. The new thing that God is doing is still being done. And you are not too late, and you are not too far gone, and you are not too broken to be part of it. Stop blocking. Start healing. And let the window close on the old you so the new you can finally come through. I'll see you in the next one.